The drive home had been long, but nothing felt as heavy as the moment Craig pulled into the driveway and I saw the silver lockbox hanging from our front door. It swung slightly in the breeze, tapping against the wood, like it belonged there, like the house had chosen someone else in our absence. I stepped out of the car slowly, my legs stiff from the ride, and my chest tightening with an unease I couldn't name yet. My key slipped into the lock, but stopped dead. I tried again. Nothing. "Try yours," I said, though my voice already knew the answer. Craig's key jammed the same way. Someone had changed the locks. We circled to the back, hoping for a mistake, anything that made sense. The gate was chained shut, but a kitchen window, the one above the old copper sink, sat open, just an inch, as if someone had forgotten to finish what they started. Craig hoisted himself up, grunting as he pulled himself through. A moment later, I heard the deadbolt click from inside. When I stepped into the house, the air felt wrong, thick, closed. A faint sourness clung to the walls, the kind you get when no one has opened a window in weeks. A pile of unopened mail sagged across the entry table. Gavin had promised to pick it up while we were gone. Clearly, he hadn't. But I barely saw any of that once my eyes fell on the kitchen island. A file folder sat neatly in the center, perfectly parallel to the counter's edge. I opened it because I already knew I wouldn't like what was inside. Listing agreement. Seller's disclosure. A bright, glossy card from a real estate agent clipped to the corner. My name signed at the bottom of every page. Curved letters, steady pressure. Someone had taken their time perfecting it. I pressed my hand to the counter to steady myself just as my phone rang. "Mrs. Ellery, this is Wellspring Bank. We need to verify several large withdrawals from your accounts." My fingers went numb around the phone. The kitchen seemed to shift under my feet, and before I could form a single question, the voice on the line began listing amounts I didn't recognize, pulling me straight into the truth, waiting in the next chapter. The woman from Wellspring Bank spoke calmly, professionally, as if she were confirming an Amazon return, not the systematic draining of everything we'd saved for 40 years. $385,000 withdrawn over 9 transactions, she said. Retirement and joint savings accounts. All authorized via power of attorney. I didn't respond at first. Not because I didn't understand, but because I understood exactly. "Who submitted the power of attorney?" I asked. "It appears to have your original signatures. Notarized. Dated last month." That document wasn't supposed to be in use. Craig and I had only drawn it up 2 years ago when he had that scare with his heart. Gavin helped us file it. He said it was just in case. It was never meant to authorize anything unless we were incapacitated. And even then, never for this. I hung up and walked straight to the safe in the study. I didn't even say a word to Craig, who was still standing in the kitchen like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. The safe was closed, but not locked. I opened it. The document folder where the original power of attorney had been filed was gone. The rest of our papers, titles, birth certificates, Craig's medical records were untouched. Whoever took it had known exactly what they were looking for. The combination had never been changed. Gavin had it. We'd given it to him back then, along with the emergency key, because he was our only child, and we trusted him. I dialed his number. Voicemail. I tried Amber. Voicemail. I sat down at Craig's desk and opened a new document on his computer. I listed every account, every transaction I remembered, every date of contact. I snapped photos of the lockbox, the forged signature, the mail pile. Craig walked in quietly behind me. "We should call the police." I nodded, but I wasn't ready to speak yet. Instead, I printed out the last bank statement, highlighted every withdrawal, lined them up next to the forged POA copy we'd had scanned. Then I called the bank again and asked them to freeze what was left. Detective Larkin arrived just after 11 the next morning. She was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, but there was nothing green about her. She moved through our living room with quiet efficiency, her eyes catching every detail before I even pointed it out. I laid out the documents on the dining table. The forged listing agreement, the power of attorney, the bank statements. She read each one slowly. Then she looked up at me. "Who has access to your safe?" "Just my husband and I said. Then, after a beat, "And Gavin. We gave him the code 2 years ago when Craig was in the hospital." She made a note. "This document," she tapped the POA, "uses your full legal signature. It's nearly perfect." I nodded. He used to watch me sign checks when he was a teenager. Thought it was funny how old-fashioned my loops were. Larkin didn't smile. "It's also notarized. But the registration number on this stamp doesn't exist. The notary is fake." Craig let out a breath I hadn't realized he'd been holding. I glanced at him. He looked so still, so impossibly tired. "Detective," I said. Voice steady. "What are we looking at? Forgery. Identity theft. Financial exploitation of a senior," she said. "This could be multiple felonies." I nodded once. I didn't need to cry. That part was behind me now. After she left, Craig went to lie down. I didn't. I opened my phone and pulled up the number of the realtor listed on the forged paperwork. Her voicemail picked up. "This is Marlene Ellery. You're holding documents I never signed. Any listing of my home is fraudulent. Take it down immediately." Next, I called Alana Trigg, our estate lawyer. She'd helped us draft the original POA. When she answered, I kept it simple. "Alana, I need help. Gavin forged the power of attorney and drained our accounts." She was silent for a second. Then she said, "I'll come by this afternoon." I thanked her, hung up, and returned to the table. I looked again at the signature, the curves, the loops, the quiet betrayal. Then I turned to the folder and began sorting every page by date. Gavin called just after sunset, his voice warm and casual, as if we were discussing dinner plans. "Hey, Mom. I saw your missed calls. What's going on?" I didn't bother answering the question. "Come to the house," I said. "Now." He arrived 20 minutes later, still wearing his work badge, the edges frayed like he'd been fiddling with it all day. Craig sat rigid on the sofa, hands folded, eyes fixed on a spot somewhere on the carpet. I stood at the dining table, the documents spread out like a crime scene. Gavin stepped inside, looked at me, then at the papers. What is all this?" he asked, his brows knitting in what would have looked like concern to anyone who didn't know him. I didn't speak. I simply pointed. He picked up the listing agreement, first scanning the lines he'd already memorized, then the forged POA, then the bank statements. His expression shifted slowly at first, then more dramatically, like he was cycling through emotions he'd rehearsed. "Mom, I can explain." Craig didn't move. Gavin pulled out a chair, sat down, and rubbed both palms over his face. "Okay, listen. We had some issues. Amber's business tanked and we got behind on payments. And then I found this crypto platform. Real returns, Mom. People were doubling their money." He leaned forward, desperate for me to believe him. "I thought if I could borrow the money just temporarily, I could fix everything before you even noticed. I was trying to protect us. All of us." I stared at him. "Crypto." I said the word, falling flat between us. He nodded quickly. "Yeah. And the house, look, we weren't actually going to sell it. It was just collateral. Temporary. Meant to show liquidity. We were never going to let it go." He waited for my response, searching my face for softness, forgiveness, anything that could let him off the hook. But I felt nothing warm, nothing soft. Only clarity. "You didn't borrow, Gavin," I said finally. "You stole." He opened his mouth to argue, but I was already gathering the papers for what would have to happen next. Evelyn met me at the bank conference room with a folder already in hand. She had the tired look of someone who'd seen too many accounts emptied, too many apologies made too late. I ran the records and followed up on the suspicious transactions, she said. But there's more. She turned her monitor toward me. Gavin's public social media page was open. A series of posts over the last 6 weeks. Crypto Quanta is changing lives. DM me if you want in. Just got another 12% return this week. This is real, folks. Don't miss your shot. Early investors win big. Each post had comments dozens. Names I recognized. People from our town. Gavin's old classmates. One of our neighbors. Some just asked questions. Others replied things like, just sent the first payment, or excited to start. He wasn't just investing, Evelyn said. He was recruiting. My mouth went dry. She clicked again, opening a folder filled with screenshots, chats, emails, forwarded messages. Gavin had built a small network promising high returns and giving fake updates from the Crypto Quanta dashboard. He'd taken money from people, not just us. I forwarded everything to Detective Larkin. She responded within the hour, her tone clipped but focused. We'll expand the case. Potential wire fraud. Possibly a federal charge if it crosses state lines. Craig sat beside me at the kitchen table that night, quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What kind of man did we raise?" I didn't answer right away. Just kept sorting the paperwork, adding tabs, notes, dates. But when I finally did speak, I didn't look up. One who thought we'd never fight back. The house was still ours, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Not with every corner holding a memory of someone who'd betrayed us so precisely. I made copies of the real estate forms, then started drafting a new letter with Gavin's realtor's name at the top. Amber knocked just after sunset. I opened the door to find her standing there, shoulders hunched, mascara streaked down her face. She didn't wait for an invitation, just stepped inside, clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I didn't know," she said, voice cracking. "I swear, Marlene. I thought it was his savings. I thought he'd been smart with money for once." Craig stayed in the den. I didn't call him in. Amber sat down hard on the edge of the couch. She was thinner than I remembered, too pale, too fragile. "I'm 12 weeks, she said, touching her stomach. "I was going to wait to tell you. We were going to bring flowers, do some kind of surprise. But everything's ruined now. I'm leaving him." The room stayed silent. I found the files. On his computer. Messages to people. Recruitment lists. "He forged your signature, Marlene. I saw it. I'll testify. I'll show you everything I found, just..." Her voice broke completely. "Just don't let this touch the baby. Don't let him drag this mess into her life." She opened her purse and pulled out a flash drive. Set it carefully on the coffee table like it was fragile. There are screenshots, messages, spreadsheets. He was keeping track of referrals. Then she reached into her coat pocket and handed me a folded letter. Ink smudged at the edges. Handwritten. "I didn't know how to say it to your face." She stood, wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I know I failed you too." I didn't say anything. I couldn't not yet. I just nodded. After she left, I sat in the quiet and read her letter. Twice. Then I slid the flash drive into an envelope for Detective Larkin. Craig came in from the hallway. I handed him the note. "She's keeping the baby," I said. He rubbed his hands together slowly. "Then we better make sure that baby grows up knowing the truth." I stood and opened the drawer for our lawyer's card. We had more calls to make. The call came early. Detective Larkin's voice was clipped, but calm. "The district attorney is filing 6 charges. Identity theft forgery, financial exploitation wire fraud, and 2 counts of elder abuse." I thanked her, though the words tasted strange. Gratitude wasn't what I felt. It was something quieter, like gravity settling. By noon, Gavin had been arrested at work. His mugshot appeared online that same evening. Tired eyes, hollowed cheeks, that same smirk he used to give when he knew he'd gone too far, but thought he'd get away with it. It ran in the next day's local paper under a neat headline, "Man charged in family fraud case." He was out by the following afternoon. Released on bail. Not by us, of course. Amber's parents posted it. The irony sat bitter on my tongue. Gavin had spent years trying to impress them, fancy dinners, bragging about investments, flashing confidence he never earned. Now, they were the ones keeping him out of jail. That night, I found the note. Folded twice, wedged between the flower pot and the screen door. "Mom, please, I've lost everything. Don't do this." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. I called Larkin. She came by within the hour, took the note in a sealed bag. "It violates the no contact order," she said plainly. "We'll add it to the file." Craig stood behind me, arms folded, silent. He hadn't said much since the arrest. I wasn't sure if it was shock or something deeper. Later that evening, I sat beside him on the couch, holding the paper with the court dates scribbled in my planner. "Are we doing the right thing?" I asked. Craig looked up slowly. "No," he said. "We're doing the necessary thing." The line between right and necessary had never felt so wide. I marked the date of the hearing and closed the planner. The next step was the trial, and we'd be there. Every day, every word. Alana sat at our dining table again. Papers laid out in careful rows, her voice as measured as ever. "They're offering a plea deal," she said. 5 years probation, 1,000 hours of community service. Full restitution paid over time. No prison. Craig didn't move. I watched his hand tighten around his mug, the knuckles whitening. "And if we refuse?" I asked. "Then we go to trial," Alana said. "It's riskier. A jury could find him guilty on all counts, or they could by his story say it was a misunderstanding, a bad investment, not criminal. He forged our names," I said flatly. "He stole our future." Alana gave a small nod. "I agree. But juries are unpredictable." I looked at the papers. One page listed restitution terms, monthly payments so small we'd be dead before half was returned. Another outlined his service hours, working at food banks, shelters, places where no one would know who he really was. "I want a jury to hear what he did," I said. Craig finally spoke. "And what if they believe him?" I met his eyes. "Then they can carry that burden." "I won't." Alana paused. "Are you sure?" "Yes." She folded the deal back into its envelope. "I'll notify the DA. Trial it is. The date was set for 8 weeks out. Enough time for discovery prep and witness lists." That night I sat at my desk and printed every screenshot Amber had given me. Each message, each dollar requested, each promise of profit. Then I made a list of names, people Gavin had taken money from. Some had trusted him because of us. Some had sent him funds because they knew we were his parents. That connection had bought him credibility. And now, we'd use the same connection to expose him. I didn't want revenge. I wanted record. I wanted truth. And if the law was slow to name him as a predator, then I would speak louder. I opened my notebook and began writing the statement I would read in court. The trial lasted 5 days. 5 long, quiet, steady days. Gavin's lawyer painted a picture of confusion, financial stress, emotional exhaustion, good intentions twisted by circumstance. They showed emails where he'd written things like temporary loan and fix this before they notice. His lawyer called it poor judgment, not criminal intent. But the jury didn't blink. They listened, they watched, and they saw it for what it was. Guilty. On all counts. The judge took her time before sentencing. She looked directly at Gavin and spoke with a calm I hadn't expected. "You used your parents' trust as a weapon," she said. "You prioritized image over integrity. You hurt people and called it ambition." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. 8 years in state prison. full restitution ordered, and a permanent no-contact order, no letters, no calls, no visits. Craig exhaled. I don't think he even realized he'd been holding his breath. I didn't cry. Not then. I just reached over and took his hand. Gavin didn't look at us when they led him away. He kept his head down. I wondered if that meant shame or if he was just already trying to vanish from consequence. Amber sat in the back with her parents. Her hands rested on her round stomach. She didn't speak to me as we left, but she nodded once. That was enough. Outside the courthouse, the wind had picked up. I held my coat tighter and walked with Craig to the car. We didn't talk much on the drive home. There wasn't anything left to explain. The facts had all been spoken, laid bare on record. We pulled into the driveway, our driveway, and this time there was no lockbox, just the house. Still ours. Craig unlocked the door. I stepped inside. The floor creaked the way it always had, familiar and unchanged. In the study, the safe sat exactly where it belonged, sealed, untouched. I poured us both a glass of water. Then I sat down and picked up the letter Gavin had once left on the porch. I read it once more slowly. Then I slid it into a folder marked closed. Sophie was born in late March. Amber sent a single photo by text, no caption, no explanation. Just a newborn, wrapped in a green knit blanket, her hands curled near her cheeks, eyes wide and searching, and a nose that pulled something deep out of my chest. 3 weeks later, we met her. Amber didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't bring up Gavin. She only said, she deserves truth and family. If you're willing. We were. We started with monthly visits. At first, Amber stayed nearby, hovering cautious. But eventually, she let us hold Sophie for longer stretches. Feed her. Rock her to sleep in the second-hand cradle Craig refinished in the garage. Sophie called me Nana first. Craig became Pop. She didn't know what her father had done. Not yet. We recovered some of what we lost. The bank returned a fraction, $125,000, after months of legal back and forth. Insurance covered another $70,000, thanks to a clause buried deep in our homeowner's policy that Alana caught. It wasn't enough to stay in the house. We sold it quietly. Bought a modest duplex on the other side of town. Smaller, simpler. But it was ours, and no one could take it without a fight. Craig took to gardening. I started tutoring high school students in the afternoons, math mostly. The work kept my mind steady. Some nights I read Gavin's letters. The prison printed their name across the top in red ink. He wrote about programs' regrets books he was reading. Sometimes he asked about Sophie. He never once said, "I'm sorry," in a way that sounded real. Some letters I burned in the fireplace. Others I folded and placed in a box on the closet shelf, marked in small handwriting. Maybe. Sophie will grow up. She'll ask questions one day. About her father. About the years he wasn't there. About the silence. And I'll have to answer. But not yet. For now, I hold her small hands when she toddles toward me in the garden. I laugh when she mispronounces basil. I carry her gently, knowing we're both still healing.